I'm going to call the meeting to order and then call a short recess. Reconvene the meeting. I'll explain that now. Under our rules of order, we are required to start a meeting within 15 minutes of the posted time. Unfortunately, because of our previous meeting went long, we were delayed in starting this meeting, and so I legally have to convene it by 7:15. I wanted to make sure we had it convened by 7:15, even if we weren't quite ready to proceed. We now are. I thank you all for your patience, and I apologize for the delay in starting the meeting. Welcome to a regular council meeting, and I'll go to Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item this evening is the minutes of the public hearing held on Monday, March 27th. Recommendation to approve.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Hodge. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 2 is minutes of the regular council meeting also held on Monday, March 27th. Recommendation to approve.
Moved by Councillor Cirillo, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is our first staff report of this evening. It pertains to a development permit authorization for a one-story service building and 16 vacuum stalls at 1200 Woolridge Street. Staff recommendations, council approve the signing and sealing of this development permit for 1200 Woolridge Street, and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute it.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, seconded by Councillor Cirillo. Just waiting for someone to make a pun about vacuum. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 pertains to zoning amendment bylaw number 4747 to rezone the properties at 430 and 450 Westview Street to permit the development of 2 residential towers and a portion of a public walkway. Staff recommendations that council give first reading to the City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4747. The bylaw number 4747 be referred to public hearing. 3, that staff be instructed to complete the following items prior to council's consideration of fourth reading, should council ultimately grant second and third readings to this bylaw. And that is submission of a subdivision plan to the satisfaction of the approving officer, completion of a housing agreement, registration of an access easement between proposed lots 1 and 2 for shared amenity spaces, i.e. a pool, a sun deck, or a gym, registration of an access easement between proposed lots 1 and 2 for underground parking, registration of a single site restrictive covenant to permit the allowable density to be shared between the 2 lots, registration of a statutory right-of-way in favor of the city to allow public rights of passage without vehicles over the plaza and walkway between the proposed lots 1 and 2, and finally, work with the applicant to further refine the design as per the comments identified in this report.
Moved by Councillor Towner, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Reid.
Questions that I'd like answered before it goes to public hearing. On page 9, you mentioned the view impacts from the adjacent properties. Has there been a shadowing study done?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid. Through the chair to Councillor Reid, the shadowing study hasn't been prepared to date, but will be done prior to council's consideration of the development permit, and based upon the ability of the architect, we'll try to get one done before a public hearing, if it makes it to public hearing.
It's a very important thing to have done before the public hearing, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. I'm very happy with the relocation assistance for the existing tenants. I think that's a very generous offer. I want to talk about on page 7 the sizes of the units. You've given me an average of 714 square feet. That isn't good enough for me. I want to talk about the fact that there are 96 one-bedrooms, 35 studios, 71 two-bedrooms, and 3 three-bedrooms. I would like to see, and I would like to know why, don't give me an answer that it's because the market says that's what it should be, but I think we have too many one-bedrooms and too many studios. We need family housing here. And I'd like to know the square footages of the 2 bedrooms and 3 bedroom studios and 1 bedrooms, not an average. I noticed there's a pool and a sun deck area. Can you confirm that the pool will be owned by the market building and the rental building will be allowed to use it? Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, that's correct, Councillor Reid.
Okay. And the parking requirements, it's a long time since I've seen something that meets all our bylaw requirements. That's good. And my last question is, probably I can answer it myself, but there's a lot of the recommendations that talk about lots 1 and 2, and the reason they're keeping them separate and not combining the lots is because one is market, one is rental, so that it can be sold off at another time. Is that correct?
The intention, that's correct, Councillor Reid. Whether it's going to be sold off, I don't know, but yes, it'll be 2 lots proposed.
Okay, thank you. So that explains all the steps. And my last question is, has there been any talk about the rental building having any subsidized rentals or any below market rentals?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, to date there hasn't been conversation, at least shared with staff, with regards to that. So they're all intended to be market rental units at this time.
Okay. Would be interesting before first reading if I could get a comment from the owner developer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zerillo.
Thank you. My question is in relation to some further explanation, if this goes to public hearing, around the difference between an RM4 and an RM6. And I know we have on page 3 some talk about the FARs, and I just wonder if they could be more generalized so that when the public comes, they understand the difference between the 2 zonings and what the FAR represents. So just a little bit more clarity around that for the person that doesn't usually come to council. That would be so awesome. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. You probably know this, but in case anybody wants the answer, the RM4 sort of more of a lower height, usually allows high-rise between 8 and 12 stories. As I recall, I think that's right. And RM6, of course, higher density, we go higher. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to read some of my notes, because I had looked that up myself. Some of my comments, mostly, there's some very positive things here. As did Councillor Reid, I'll start my comments by saying that the relocation assistance for existing tenants, it's a very comprehensive package, and I think this is, we've done this before, we've seen something like this before in another development, and I think they've set a really good example here of the sorts of things that will make these transitions go more smoothly. I had questions about the pool and sun deck area and the indoor gym, so I just wondered, and this is not a rezoning matter specifically, but I wonder, so they're going to be, the pool, sun deck, and the indoor gym are going to be shared between the market, the condo tower, which is owners, and the rental tower. They're going to be owned by the condo association, or they're going to be owned by the developer. And I'm just worried that this sort of unusual, I think it's kind of unusual to mix one joint common area between rental and market and a condo. And just want to understand how this would work.
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, the
O'Neill.
Oh, sorry, Councilor O'Neill. The pool and the indoor amenity space will be under the ownership of the market tower strata development, and however the future residents, tenants of the proposed rental building will be allowed to utilize that space. There'll be agreements put together between the two lots with the city as a third party to ensure that commitment is met.
Oh, good. I was wondering if it was the Strata Council controls it and owns it. If they decided somewhere down the road that this arrangement wasn't working out, that we're going to change the keys and not allow the rental people in. But that won't be possible under this scenario then. As you've explained, that's good then. Thank you. So there's a lot of check marks on this for me. I was really happy to see how the housing affordability strategy is again encouraging proposal for another large rental tower. I think as we go forward with the housing affordability strategy, we're seeing that in Coquitlam anyway, that the biggest take-up is in market rental, and the rental even more so than the condo towers. That's where people are now looking, and it's happening all over the Lower Mainland because of the high home prices to buy. Single-family homes, condos, townhouses are all pretty expensive, so people are now looking more and more to rental, and it's great to see that our policies are encouraging developers to build them and to making it worthwhile. And I guess the long-term benefit for the developers that they continue to own that property. So they, in an area where land is very high priced and very rare, and they're not making any more of it, that developer still maintains ownership of some property. So it's probably good business. Obviously, it's good business decisions for the developers to do this. Really happy to see that that the HAS is being reflected in the proposals we are getting. So I'm happy to see this go forward to public hearing. Thank you.
You, Councillor Asmussen.
I like this project. A couple of things. Recently, we had a market tower come before us, and I've talked about this before about they're proposing unlimited rentals within the strata of the market tower. Would we be willing to suggest to this developer also to look within the Strata Act, excuse me, to make sure that there would be unlimited rentals allowed within this building, which would then add to our potential pool of rental facilities?
Through the chair to Councillor Asmussen, the developer has confirmed that they will allow, there won't be any rental restrictions on the market tower condo building.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that. I'm also, the building here under the housing affordability talks about, we're talking about the number of single units, 2-bedroom units, and 3-bedroom units, but it also talks in here about 2 bedrooms plus, and there's a report about 2 bedrooms and den, but it doesn't break down how many units would have a 2-bedroom and den. And there's a line here that sort of gives me a little confusion that says on page 7, the proportion of the units with 2+ bedrooms, I'm assuming that's with a den, will decrease from 45% to 32%. However, the total number of units in this category will increase.
I did the math on that one myself. Currently, there's 45 2- and 3-bedroom units in the rental building.
Existing rental.
And that will triple to 149, although its percentage of the total obviously is smaller because the number of units is quadrupled.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Stewart. That was a good help.
I had the same question, so I did the math.
And I guess the other issue through to staff is that it was mentioned here about view impacts on adjacent properties. And when I look at the amount of high-rises we're getting into, and we had this up when the BD Tower was being proposed and the other tower being there, wanting their views in here, is there any way we can put in that, with all the development of new towers, that the view that's there today is not necessarily going to be your view. You don't own the view, and that your view can change. I don't know how we deal with that, but we come up with people in the city center here where we put up a new tower, was planned for a new tower, and we get people complaining about the views. Is there any way, when we get into this, that information can go out to people? And I just think it's fair to people that they know in advance that your views in this area will not be here forever, so they know when they're buying that high-rise that has this beautiful view that there could be another high-rise in front of you. And they deal with that in Vancouver, major cities around the world, but I think it's something that we have to be more upfront with people. I can understand people thinking that they bought this unit, they're sold on a view, that's going to be it forever. But there's got to be a way that we can get that message out, either through the development and the applicant when they're selling their units, to fully disclose and explain that these views will not always be there and you don't own the view. And I just think we hear that at council a number of times where people were misled or felt they had something that would never change, and it causes issues. So is there any answer to that? Or
I'll take a shot at it. With respect to, I guess, residents and tenants who might move into the proposed buildings, should council approve them along, because perhaps their views may in the future change as well, in terms as other development takes place in and around the area. So there are ways, some tools we can use so that the residents, the owners, as they move into the proposed buildings, some acknowledgement that in the future the views, might change. There's legal tools we can use for the current buildings. As to folks in the sort of existing buildings in and around the area, I guess just through good communication from ourselves as the planning department, as a city, and sort of other tools we could use. But I'm not aware off the top of my head of any sort of legal mechanisms that we can, or sort of more formal sort of things. But I've made a note to myself to do a bit of research on that piece.
Well, I thank you for doing that. I just think it's an issue that we need to be trying to deal with, to be fairness to people when they're buying units in these areas, and the change that's going to happen. And I look back, and you look back in pictures of Vancouver back in the 30s and 40s with single-family housing to mid-rises to high-rises, and there's an eventual change that's going to happen. The one thing I really do like about this application is we had 101 units, and we're going to be doubling that to 202 rental units, which is a positive. So I'm looking forward to the public hearing on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Towner.
Thank you. There are many aspects I really like about this project. The fact that there's rental, no variances in the parking or the amenity space, the tenant relocation, etc. I think it sounds very well thought out. But I also am going to chime in that I also would like to see if there's a possibility of getting more 3-bedroom units, or find out the number of 2-bedroom and den, just so we can have more families move into the area. And I also, we had a presentation today on the Coquitlam-Lougheed neighborhood plan and the significant amount of public consultation done in that area. And people are wanting more rental and more housing choice and densification, so I think this fits the bill very well. I was going to ask for one of you to explain what a proposed project rental replacement ratio of 2 to 1 is. I know what it is, but I had a member of the public ask me, but I think you just said it. We're doubling the rental by this project. So anybody listening who doesn't know what that means, it means we're doubling the amount of rental. And I'm happy to move this project along. Thank you.
Thank you. I too am happy to move this project along. I want to, Cressy, the project proponent, has been a provider of rental housing in our community for as long as I can remember. And these units particularly were built decades ago, the existing building, and Cressy is proposing to double the number of rental units in the course of replacing the rental component of this and adding some market housing. And in the course of doing that, as I mentioned earlier, it would take the current 45 2-bedrooms and make it 149 two plus bedrooms units. And that's, from my perspective, again, something, and other councillors have mentioned that, that's an important reality in our community. That actually, Councillor Towner mentioned we want more families to move to our neighborhood. Actually, we have them here already. We just have to find housing for more family-oriented housing that's affordable for so many families. And and is a struggle. I've mentioned several times, and I look forward to the possibility that we will adopt something like this, is find a way to incentivize the provision of the third bedroom and the fourth bedroom in apartments by either forgiving them their FSRs from the calculations. That I think would cost us nothing on a project like this, because obviously it's only 3 third bedrooms, but it could have ended up incentivizing a couple of dozen 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom units by exempting that extra floor space from the floor space ratio calculations. I think we have to be more creative in order. We recognize that the market is hard to deal with in overcoming the extra costs associated with the density losses when you add a third or fourth bedroom, and we can get past that. So I look forward to seeing this one proceed to public hearing, and has my support for first reading. Any other speakers? Saying none. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next item, item 5, pertains to the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategic Plan for 2015 to 2030 approval. Staff recommendation is that Council approve the final Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategic Plan for that 15-year period, and that the goals and action items identified in the plan be incorporated into the final Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Towner. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you very much. Boy, I think it's been how many years since we started the project? A couple anyway, and I'm so pleased to see the word draft removed from this, because I think the last iteration was final draft, and I remember asking, does final draft mean that this is it now? And I guess not. So we've got final and draft and everything taken off. It's finally complete. This is something that, as the overall master plan for Parks, Rec, and Culture was taking place, that there was a strong realization that a major component of that was to get this strategic plan in place. I think there's a recognition that other parts of the Park, Rec, and Culture empire had moved ahead pretty well, and there's arts, culture, and heritage needed some more shaping and some more direction. And of course, when we adopted the final draft, there was 10 points that were identified to move ahead on quick wins, and some of those are underway right now. So I'm really happy to see this. I have one question, and it's dealing with on page 3, middle of the page. The strategic plan also recommends that the Innovation Center be considered as a future cultural space and purpose for arts and culture opportunities. That's something, by the way, that the Culture Services Advisory Committee unanimously supported. It is expected that substantial renovations for this facility would be required to facilitate this potential future cultural use, and therefore an estimated cost of renovations is also included in the PRC Master Plan Implementation Strategy as a placeholder. Now, my question is, does this statement and our acceptance of this report further solidify the intention that the Innovation Center would have an arts and culture use? And if so, does that create some friction with the new planning for the Town Center Park that's going on, which also involves, I think, projected use of that facility? I know that the discussion came up in relationship to just development around Lafarge Lake, and how with the coming of SkyTrain and the attractions around Lafarge Lake and the Town Center Park Plaza, that more people would be coming, and maybe there's another amenity use for the building. I just wanted to know where we sit with this now in terms of the planning for the Innovation Center, and what this report does today. Does it move us more firmly in one direction?
Mr. Ottaway. No? Who wants this one?
Through me.
Okay, there we go.
Through the chair. The actual goal within the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plan itself is actually to engage a specialised consultant to do a feasibility analysis of the Innovation Centre to determine the best possible use in the long term for this facility. And that is worded fairly open-endedly, because it could be that while we would like to see some cultural uses in there, the scope of the renovations may be cost prohibitive. And so this does not preclude other things. It just allows us to continue doing an assessment of the facility and look at it in light of what potential cultural uses could it have. Yes, we're continuing with the Town Centre Park Master Plan as well, and looking at washrooms and food services that this centre, that the Innovation Centre could also provide. So I think the feasibility analysis that we would do would look at all those potential uses.
And regardless of the future use of the Innovation Centre, I'd like to get one proposal out now, and I'm not sure if I've said it publicly yet, but that big grey wall on the south end of the Innovation Centre facing the beautiful atrium area of the Evergreen Cultural Centre. That big grey wall is a perfect place for some sort of artwork, I think. We really should decorate that or have an artwork there of some sort, because the Innovation Centre, of course, is blocking a fair bit of the view that the Evergreen Cultural Centre should have had and kind of opened up with the wonderful three-story glass wall that's there. So at least if they can't see the lake and the park, they should be seeing something other than the brick wall there, I think. So hopefully that can be in the planning somewhere. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Reid. Oops, sorry. It's Councillor Hodges next, then Councillor Reid. My apologies. Jeez.
Thank you. The Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plan is an important part of the overall Master Parks and Culture Master Plan. It was one of the pieces we were missing. So I'm very pleased to see this coming forward. But, as I've said when reading this in the past, and this report identifies a lot of issues. It makes a lot of observation. But it makes very few concrete recommendations. And I know it's sort of just at a high level overarching strategy, but I would have liked to have seen more recommendations other than the several instances where it recommends further studies. And I tend to judge a report based on what I've learned and what recommendations I can take away. And for example, like most councillors, I know that we need to preserve our heritage artifacts, such as the Riverview collection. And while we are now moving forward in inventorying that, it doesn't really outline a lot of concrete steps as to what we would need. And I'm one of those guys, I want to see things and get dates and costs and what we need to do. And I think that's sort of outlined on page 31. On the same page, it does recommend that we should buy museum display cases that can go out into the community as a way of taking artifact and things out into the community. I think it's a great idea, but it's certainly not a new idea. In fact, I was talking about it back when before I was on council and I was president of the Heritage Society. So I'm glad to see a lot of ideas being gathered together, but I'm not seeing a lot of concrete next steps. And I'm hoping maybe how that could be identified. I have a kind of other comments, but I'll turn it over to our general manager to just sort of comment maybe how the implementation of what's coming next.
Thank you, through the chair, your worship. And you'll see other strategies in front of council later today, which deliver kind of a blueprint for services in a different way, because it's a different level of service delivery. The Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategic Plan, this is probably the most comprehensive arts, culture and heritage plan the city has ever had. And I too, I'm very driven by practical outcomes. And this plan, though, is a little bit broader in scope, because it handles an area that's very, very broad, very diverse, very rich. And as you can tell by the definition of culture, it's so broad. And that's really the essence of why this stands in a little different place. But just those are two good examples. Because it was a top 10 action, the Riverview commentary and that we had in this allowed us to come forward to council last year and get money, and council supported that. So there is clear outcomes that we have highlighted, and we've tasked, certainly I've tasked our managers in the culture side to continue to view this plan as the kind of the source of our annual business plan, of our annual strategic work that we do. And we will continue to populate our business plan on the cultural side with these initiatives Many of them are collaborative, many of them are program-based outcomes, some of them are facility-based outcomes, but we'll continue to do that. It just stands at a slightly different level, but we're certainly keen to make sure that this continues to be a live plan that delivers outcomes every year for council and presents culture initiatives at the same place as other initiatives that we might bring forward, and they should compete at the same level for funding and to advance the culture area.
And thank you for that, because I was drawing the comparison to the next report coming up, which does outline, numbers and needs and dates and costs. So I recognize that that's in a more defined area, which is aquatics, whereas this is sort of more overarching. Because this is a heritage strategy as well, it doesn't, I think it's only one place where it mentions Booth Farm, and that's a recent acquisition, an acquisition I'm very pleased the city has made. I believe it's the oldest building in the city. It's nice to see it, that it's sort of under our umbrella of care now, but this report doesn't sort of talk to possible uses. I would have seen that as part of a heritage strategy. And the other question I have is, my understanding is we still don't even have an actual heritage designation on it, yet we own it. And I would have thought maybe those pieces would come out, or is there future work to be done on the heritage side of things?
We actually do show it, and we have included it, including the Booth Farm preservation. We have highlighted in our master plan, our Parks, Recreation, and Culture master plan. It is something we've highlighted as a not long-term, probably a medium-term priority. If you remember, the reason why it's not an immediate one, it's not because it's value. It's a very important value. We currently have a use for that, so under our staff, so that we make sure that it's protected. But we are looking at the acquisition of more land there, something we're thinking about in terms of it is a park as well as a heritage site. So we're looking at creating a plan for that site, and the creation of a plan will actually be the kind of inertia that we'll need to then do the things we need to do on that site and determine its long-term use. But we do have it in our master plan as an initiative. It's likely going to be a couple of years away in terms of its as a priority for council because of the need to assemble and look at a park plan. But it is highlighted in the report under the financial side. It is included in there.
Okay, good. And I was aware it was in the master plan along with the park. I was just sort of thinking, this being the heritage piece, wondering what was being done in the heritage. And maybe some could answer is, it does not have yet a heritage designation on it as such. Is that something that we're contemplating or looking at in the future?
A heritage designation, absolutely, it is a heritage building. We purchased it for heritage preservation. Our goal would be to ensure its highest protection. Typically, heritage preservation is done through either heritage conservation designation or heritage revitalization, heritage designation under the bylaw. We don't need to do that because we're owners of the building, but we will clearly, when we take steps to create a plan for this site, we will clearly protect it in its highest way as a heritage building, including putting a heritage designation on it. It's currently a city-owned site, so we have full protection of the property.
Okay, thank you. As I said, I'm glad we've got this piece. I think it's important that we mesh the heritage and arts and cultures into the master plan. And I've certainly there's a number of things here that interest me. I'm going to be following them in the future and hoping that we do see some implementation strategies and that we can move forward with some of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid now. Now.
Wow. My question is on page 3 as well, and it's to do with the Innovation Centre. And like Councillor O'Neill, I would like to see we actively pursue some good use for that in the arts and culture and not for staff use or our use. Most importantly, as I've long been a supporter of the Evergreen Cultural Centre, there was no recommendation in here for expansion of the theatre. And one of the reasons was because, SkyTrain was coming. Well, SkyTrain's here. And there have been some very beautiful buildings made right adjacent to SkyTrain stations. And timing is everything. So I want to know is, do we have any plan to go out and actively pursue a P2 or a P3 partnership? Because I'm willing to go out and try and find a few million. I'd like to get something going there. I think the last plans we had from them was not to expand that theater, but to build one side by side, just a bit bigger theater, and expand the cultural center. I mean, it will even bring a great lively economy to our town center, which is growing like crazy. And we've got lots of buildings there that could be rented out. So it's fine to have a strategy, and I don't want to see it put on a shelf and you dust it every week. I want to know, is there anyone in staff that's actively pursuing any of this, or is it up to us to do it, or what would you like? Because I want to see something built.
Just to clarify, that pursuing the entire plan implementation or the implementation of an expansion of the Evergreen Theater? So I'm not sure of the question.
Well, the theater.
Okay, the theater.
One part of it.
Okay.
And at one time, we had thought about the Innovation Center perhaps being some kind of a, I'll say coffee shop, but it has to be a
Yes.
very fancy, lovely place that we can hold, art shows and drinks and dinner, and maybe not dinner, but
Yes.
canapes before things. So, I mean, we're supposed to be growing up. We're supposed to be big boys and girls now. So I'd like to see a facility like that in our city, and that can bring some life to our downtown.
Yeah. So the approach taken here is that we haven't made a recommendation in this plan around the expansion of the Evergreen Theater. The idea is that we're going to be looking at this, and we have to do an assessment. It is evolving. There's things happening here that over the last 10 years have changed. We are changing, and a couple of things are kind of coming together. Number one is the Town Center Park Master Plan, which is kind of evolving, and we're getting lots of information as to how the park is used and who gets drawn there. There's the work done around the Innovation Center and the kind of uses. So all those are going to come together, and I do anticipate in the next couple of years we'll have a much better picture as to what expansion can happen on that site. Evergreen will be a couple of years into it now, so we'll know kind of the patterns of usage. So there's a lot of things like that, and this plan leaves that open. So there's a number of initiatives that are actually kind of coming together on that corner, very important corner for the city, and the whole idea of the expansion of the theater will be one of those questions.
Well, if there's any philanthropists with us tonight.
Well, we're happy. I'll give out business cards in the back for that. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I am pretty excited about this plan. Like Councillor Hosry, yes, I wish I'd seen a little bit more action, but I think it's great, and there's lots happening in arts, culture, and heritage in the city. I kept hoping to see more about sort of the partnership with the school district. And it wasn't until the very end where it mentions the neighborhood learning centers and that sort of thing. And I look at our, it talks a lot about youth engagement and getting youth more involved in culture, but youth are very involved in culture in our schools. And our schools are our main provider of youth, arts, culture, not so much heritage maybe, but, and so I really hope that we look at really being a little bit more aggressive in, making those connections with schools. When we're looking at a new middle school and a new high school in Burke Mountain, maybe have the neighborhood learning center be more of an arts setup like they did in Moody Middle. Because I really think, there's so many synergies between after-school programs and that sort of thing. And I think we're potentially missing out on a way to leverage those assets that we're not doing today. So I don't know if that was discussed and discounted, or if that just wasn't part of the strategy, but it was good to at least see it mentioned, but I'd like to see more emphasis on it.
Thank you. Councillor Zerillo.
So it's very exciting that it's here and we're looking at it. I just have two things. The first one is about arts, the word arts. We have recommendations within the document about phasing out the word arts and even the heritage piece and going right with culture. And one of the recommendations is to explore renaming our advisory committee, and we've already done that. But I did want to just understand if this document is going to be called Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategic Plan, but one of our goals is to phase out and stick with one term of culture, are we at risk of losing that whole idea of the arts? Like, what is the thought around that? I'm still struggling with the whole idea of losing the word arts and losing that fun piece of it.
Through the chair, I think generally many that have been working on this plan are also of that mind. I think there was some high level discussion, and I think people are really comfortable with the title. Otherwise, I think we would have, if we felt there was a huge push and a huge support, we might have named this plan differently. I think the idea is that it could evolve. We'll see where this evolves. At this point, we believe that arts, culture, and heritage is what should be called in the plan, and we believe that its components really make up an understanding to people as to what we are trying to advance. Perhaps we're not there with the label of cultural to the point where the public might understand what might be, and that there was some discussion around that in the multiple venues of discussion that this took place in. So we're comfortable with that. I think it's a work towards. We're evolving with the sector, so we will see where it all goes, and there's always collaboration with our providers, our partners, and council. And if it ever gets into a point, I think the idea of that goal is to just continue to evolve with the sector and make sure we're tracking well with the things that are happening in the cultural world, including the arts, culture, and heritage side of things.
All right, so I'm happy with the Title II, and I'm on the side of slowing down the amalgamation. So I'll leave it with you. Like you said, you're staying current. Maybe we're ahead of the curve. I'm okay to slow it down a bit. The other question is about page 4. We had some capital projections, and I wonder if we could just step through each of those projections. It talks about Town Centre Park being completed with the $30 million estimated cost there. I'm just wondering if these are set in stone, or how these numbers came about for these specific projects. Specifically, $12 million for heritage. I'm just wondering if that's, I guess when these are in an open meeting, that we might get people thinking, oh, we're getting $12 million for heritage. So if you could just walk us through those, that'd be great.
Perhaps I will make one opening comment, and then Michelle Hunt, our new GM of Finance, who is also a part of my department for some time, and I should thank, is one of the very important people responsible for many of these strategies. So Michelle knows these in and out. But I will make a point on that. The strategies before us today, there's 3 of them, and this is one of them, have highlighted kind of just a high-level financial picture. It is not, this doesn't secure financing. It's not requesting financing allocation from council. It's simply indicating kind of a high-level picture of essentially the kind of the financial kind of scope of funding each of these plans over a period of 20, 25 years, whatever scope of that strategy. And it's only when we come forward with that particular project and approach council with specific financing requests with more details, that's when the funding allocations actually occur. So just to explain that, these are really just to give council an understanding of, number one, the scope of kind of where the plan might go. And again, they can change over time. So this is just high level today. They are based on 2016 dollars. And we've also talked in this discussion around the kind of funding sources that might be available over the next 10, 20 years to fund some of these projects that we would bring forward once council lets us know that these are priorities. So with that, I'll just maybe have Michelle kind of track through the list of high-level projects in this plan under the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Strategic.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, under the visual and performing arts, there is the first one is the Town Centre Park Plaza, which was completed for about $3 million, just over. The Place des Arts expansion or renovation was included in the master plan as a placeholder of $15 million. The Innovation Centre renovations and upgrades was a placeholder of $10 million. And there was a placeholder, which is not listed here, but for the Northeast Recreation Complex to have some sort of visual and performing arts, either a black box theatre or studios, of $2 million. So that makes up the $30 million. I do want to reiterate again that these are, it's a very high level order of magnitude costs and are not based on a scope or design. The Northeast Library branch, again, that would be part of the new recreation and culture complex up there, and there's a $5 million placeholder for that. Under heritage, we have Booth Farm Preservation, and that's been put in as $2 million as a placeholder, and then the Heritage Centre at $10 million. The festivals and events infrastructure, that is looking at park infrastructure so that we can hold more festivals and events outdoors, and so that would be in a variety of parks. And lastly, as public art, we try and do our public art in partnership with developers and other partners. So this is sort of a matching contribution to that. So once again, these are just placeholders within the master plan, so that council has a sense of what we would be looking at in terms of cost for these types of initiatives when comparing these to other major capital projects. They would be approved as the individual projects came forward for council as part of future capital and business plans.
And just to be clear, that's out to 2025 or 2026, you said, or is it all the way to 2030, these ones?
2030, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned collaboration with the school board. I am a bit remiss because normally when other elected officials are in the audience, we do acknowledge school trustee Barb Hobson is here. She's here with a different hat on, of course. She's president of Place des Arts and has an undoubted keen interest in this report, but I saw her taking notes during the school district stuff. And I note that the very last photo of the report is actually a piece of art that looks into my office. Created by students of School District 43 right here at City Hall, and we love this piece and many pieces like it. So thank you very much for being here, and I agree that the school district can play a key role in the development of arts, culture, and heritage in our community. I don't see any other speakers. The motion is approval of the strategic plan. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next item, item 6, pertains to aquatic services and infrastructure strategy for the years 2015 to 2040 and the approval of that strategy. Staff recommendations that council approve the final aquatic services and infrastructure strategy and that the goals and action items identified in that strategy be incorporated into the final Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Oops, Councillor Zerillo is opposed. The motion carries.
Next item, item 7, is the Arena Services and Facilities Strategy for the years 2016 to 2030 and approval of that strategy. Staff recommendations that council approve the following updated immediate to short-term action in the Arena Services and Facilities Strategy as follows. Continue to work with the City of Port Moody and Coquitlam and Port Moody curling clubs to centralize curling services at the City of Port Moody Curling Arena starting in 2017-2018 and convert the third ice sheet at Poirier Sport and Leisure Complex to general arena use in the fall of 2017. And 2, direct staff to incorporate the goals and action items identified in the updated Arena Services and Facilities Strategy into the final Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan.
Moved.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. Having spoken with council members before, I will treat these as dividable and therefore divided. We will treat them separate. We will debate them and vote on them separately. That's okay. Councillor Reid.
Thank you.
On 1.
Am I really on this time?
You're always on.
I do not support this. I did not support moving curling. I was quite vocal in my support. I did not support when we go back to November 16th, and I want to be very clear on something. There were, in the recommendations, there were several parts to it. As the mayor just said that we can move separation, we moved separation then. I did not support endorsing the document to move curling at all. I'm quite happy with curling where it's been for the last 50 years. Probably because I'm still 38 and I get it. Directing staff, however, the next one was directing staff to move forward with discussions of Port Moody and Coquitlam. I did support because when you lose a battle, You don't necessarily lose the war. So I lost the first one by council voting to approve the move. But the second one I felt I had to support, because you can't just say, no, I'm not going to do it, and stomp your feet. You basically have to let staff continue to discuss in case there's somebody comes up and says, well, this just isn't going to work. And then that's okay. We're back to where we were in the first place. I believe that 2018 is entirely soon enough. I believe through all the trials and tribulations that we've all gone through, that hopefully Curling BC will come forward and we will be able to come into a partnership of some sort. I'm hoping, and I believe my council members would be hoping as well, that somehow we can perhaps get some kind of a really great curling facility here, and that Port Moody and Poco and everywhere else can come to us and use it. I don't feel that the time since November till now, I think those were very crucial months. And in November 16th, I had not yet at that time heard one iota from Port Moody Council as a formal motion that they were going to go along with this, that they wanted it. I don't believe that I got a motion until it was about the end of February, I believe, where we were forwarded something. And now here we are, and we're 6 months or so from the start of the curling season. And I have to agree with Arlene, who has done a yeoman's job for you. I don't know if you are aware of how much she has done, but this woman has gone to the lengths for this one. I do not believe it is enough time. And I am not that great with ice and a Zamboni and all the stuff that you need to fix it all up. But I just do not believe that there is time to get everything ready. There may be, and that's all the technical stuff. But the part that we have to think about is the people and the human resources that we have here, the people that are the volunteers and that curl and that get together and that, you know, want to join the two clubs. And, you know, how do you do it? It's going to happen whether it's this year, next year, or the year after. But in any event, I feel that 2018 is certainly enough time, or is a more appropriate time, not enough, but a more appropriate time to make this move. So unless we can change the date to 2018, and I won't make a motion at this point in time because all my council members probably want to speak to it too, but that is where I stay. And thank you very much.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I'm finding myself agreeing with a lot of what Councillor Reid had said, but I have some questions. You know, back in November when we were discussing this, I said that I could only support this if, you know, we could be guaranteed that the ice conditions would be as good as they are in Coquitlam, that the issues around the facility would be rectified, and that the members of the Coquitlam Curling Club would be treated, you know, fairly and equally to the members of the Port Moody Club. And so we're being asked today to approve this early transfer, but I haven't had any answers to those yet. So if you could answer the questions in terms of the ice conditions, the facility conditions, and you know, how the members will be treated fairly and equally, I'd really appreciate it.
Mr. Oliver.
Through the chair on the two questions. So I as I did mention at council and committee, I've been in contact with the Port Moody staff, and all efforts are being made by their staff to manage the ice conditions and to improve them as best as possible, and that includes a number of issues they've had on lane 6 and on lane 5. Some of it has worked very well on lane 6, and they're just fixing lane 5. They've got a number of facility issues they are dealing with, and they're doing the best they can. They're committed to try and bring that facility up to the best quality. Some of the equipment that we will be providing them will help them do that, and we've got a commitment from them that they're doing the best they can to bring the quality up, and that's the commitment they've given me, and I believe that they are genuine and that they're making efforts to do that. We did have complaints about our own ice for many years, and it does continue from time to time. It isn't uncommon for facilities across the region, except for the number of them that may be very, very good for whatever reason. There are issues that occur on ice quality. There's a number of facility issues that they're dealing with that are not directly related to the ice making, such as a drip and things like that. And they're dealing with those as well. And there's financial issues. They have to bring those into their capital, facility work, and they are doing that. It's hard for me to guarantee, Councillor Wilson, because I'm not in charge of that curling club. I'm not part of the council that decides on their funding for their facility, but I can certainly tell you that every effort's being made by the Port Moody staff, their facility staff, which we've talked to, on steps that they are taking to make that the best ice that they can. And like I said, the equipment that we're able to provide them is going to go a long way to helping them do that as well. So that's what I can say on that. I don't think I can say any more because I'm not in charge of the decisions there, but I can tell you they're certainly committed to me that issue. On the issue of how Port Moody, or I guess how the Port Moody Curling Club is dealing with the Coquitlam curlers, this is for me a little bit of a head scratcher as well. I speak to them and they say, no, they can come in and we're going to bring them into our club, and we've had good discussions. And then we hear from Coquitlam that there's some other things being said. That's not the information I'm getting from discussions I'm having with the staff at Port Moody. That Port Moody Curling Club is making the efforts to find a way, and there's going to be an executive director that would be hired to assist them in doing the administration, the intake, all the work required for the scheduling. They are already saying that they would be bringing something up to make it a Tri-Cities Curling Club and change the name. Everything that I'm hearing, that's what I'm hearing, directly from the staff, is positive, that the efforts are being made. I hear otherwise from people in the Coquitlam Curling Club like today, and it's hard for me to comment because that's not the information I have. And generally speaking, what I'm hearing is what I'm hearing across the board. So to me, it's a little bit confounding. But all I can report out is my discussions with Port Moody Curling Club. Port Moody staff. So that's as much guarantee as I can provide. Certainly everything I'm hearing is positive for us, which is why our report states that this is our recommendation.
Well, I mean, I'll just use the humidity issue as an example, right? I look at how long it's taken us to figure out the humidity problems in the form, right? And then once we got the problems figured out, we order the mechanical pieces, and they didn't have the right part or whatever, and there's delays and delays and delays. So who knows how long it's going to take to fix the humidity issue in Port Moody. We made this decision back in November, say in 2018, potentially 2017, and then here we are in April, and we still don't have much in place, right? We heard today that the Curl BC ice technician just got a letter recently about getting involved. Well, okay, so there's going to be ball hockey or ice skating over the summer, and then they're going to start the process in September. From what I understand, it could take a while before they get things figured out. We want to make this transition early, but there hasn't been anybody hired to do the work. And to me, again, as Councillor Reid mentioned, it's the human side of it. I mean, we can figure out, all the technical stuff, but if the curlers, aren't going to be, treated as equals, if the curlers are going to be given second-rate ice time, if the curlers or the Coquitlam curlers are not going to be embraced, then again, I'm not comfortable making this transition. So at this point, I just feel that there's so many unknowns. I can't, in good conscience, approve or vote for this report because I don't know what the facility is going to be like. I don't know what the ice is going to be like. I don't know how they're going to be treated. And I wish I had a lot more of those certainties right now because, we all, most of us, agree that this has to be done, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it under these circumstances. So,
Thank you.
Appreciate your answers, but I don't think I can support it right now.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Yes, thank you. We've said it often. This has been a very difficult decision, and it's made even more difficult because it impacts longtime members of our community who are passionate about the sport of curling. Lost in this discussion, I think, is the fact that this is an arena strategy. It's long overdue. Some of the recommendations in this strategy should have been enacted years ago. If some of the long-term recommendations, such as building more ice facility, had been adopted years ago, we might not have found ourselves in the situation that we were in last fall, which was there's a shortage of ice and having to choose how to allocate a limited resource between very worthy users. One of the immediate actions in the plan was identified to work with the City of Port Moody and their curling club to relocate our curlers to Port Moody Arena in September of 17, so that the current rink that the curlers use could be repurposed as a general use rink. As I said, I wish it hadn't come to that. I think that years ago, when we rebuilt the Poirier facility, we simply just replaced one arena with another arena, and we built a third arena that we set up as a curling rink. But it was really, I think, looking back now, and I wasn't part of that decision, but now when I look at it, I can see that this was really a decision that was made years ago, and it came to that final day last fall. The arena strategy was originally scheduled to come in September 6th of last fall, and it was deferred to November 21st meeting to allow further consultation with this community. And when the report finally came back to our council back on November 21st, the date had been changed to 2018 because, as today's report outlines, concerns about the transition plan emerged. And presumably this meant more time was needed to work out that transition. And thus, I'm told, and by the clubs, and we heard that from Arlene Graham today, that because they believed they had till 2018, they did not begin working on an immediate strategy to do that amalgamation. And of course, as further discussions went on between, I guess, our staff and Port Moody, indicated that they could move forward with 17. But I'm challenged by the fact that it took 4 months to arrive at this recommendation, and the two clubs lost 4 months that they could have been working on the details of this merger. And these are details that would have that now have to be worked out between volunteers who run these clubs and will be away during the next 4 months, presumably doing other things. And I just want to echo what Councillor Reid said. I mean, I'm not a curler. I spend a lot of time photographing curler. Many of you I know from other activities in the community. And I just can't say enough about the people who volunteer their time for your organization. And the people who are passionate about a sport in their community. And that's one of the things that makes this all the more difficult. But as other councillors have mentioned, there's also a human element to this, a side to this, that we have to recognize that these are volunteers. These are volunteers that we're asking to do this. And as I said last fall, I think that if we're going to, I don't like the fact that we have to make this move, but I also believe that regardless of where the curlers play, the future of curling in this community is best served by one strong regional club. And I want to ensure that we do this properly and to make that merger as successful as possible. And to be successful, several things need to happen. Staff from both cities must get the facilities ready. Our staff have said they can repurpose the Coquitlam rink for general ice with dasher boards and everything in a relatively short time. However, I note, and that's great because we could get icing going, but I just want one question here. I note in the attachment that was just recently added to the report, I think it was missed originally, but we have a copy of it now. In the transition plan, it mentions in April of 17 that we would begin, I guess, coordinating reduction ice purchase from Planet Ice for 18-19 season. So that means that even if the curlers were to move out this year, we would still have ice capacity because we're now too late to negotiate a reduction in ice time with planted ice. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We tried near the end of last year when all the decisions were being made, but at that time we couldn't compel the process to go any faster. So the reduction in the purchase of planted ice services will happen the following year. Correct.
Okay. I know that Port Moody has said that that they believe that they can have everything ready. I would, like Councillor Wilson, I'd sort of like to have those assurances. But also, if this is going to be one regional club, the curlers themselves need that time to prepare, and now their season has ended. And I don't think you can just arrive in Port Moody in September and say, here we are. I would like to have seen the last 4 months used for joint planning, possibly some social activities or joint bonspiels or get-to-know-you events, get the executive director hired in consultation with both sets of, with both clubs of curlers. These are curlers who do not like, there are curlers who don't like this decision, and I understand that. They don't like the decision to move to another location. And there are a number of curlers who recognize that a single regional club is what the future holds. But they have said, and we heard them this afternoon, they've said, give us time to make this happen successfully. And I believe that Council should stick to the decision we made in November, both on the commitment to move forward with the amalgamation, but also stick to the transition date that we agreed on in November. And so I will continue to support the arena strategy, but I will not support the change in the date. I'm going to stick with the original strategy and the original date that was passed in November. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Towner.
Thank you. When I voted back in November of 2016 on the resolution to amalgamate the two clubs and transition curling to the Port Moody Club, that included a move date of 2018. So I'm not comfortable. 4.5 months have passed. We heard today that the Coquitlam curlers haven't made any arrangement whatsoever to start the transition. And even if I was comfortable that 5 months before the next season was long enough for all of the facility type changes and maintenance and ice improvements and whatnot, the part that isn't sitting well with me is not only us changing the resolution that we voted on, is the people aspect. I think by allowing 1 more year, it will allow much better planning, better organization, joining the two clubs. But maybe I'm too much of a sentimentalist, and when you leave your home for the last time or change jobs or close a business or close a school, there's celebrations, there's the sentimental journey through all of that. There's the human part of it. I mean, you guys will do your last rock thrown and you'll do that kind of thing. And by us forcing it through now, there wasn't that opportunity. And I was already feeling that way, but hearing the presentations today just sort of cemented that for me. The physical things, the facility things we might get done, but it doesn't sit well with me. I think we should stick with our original date, and all the arena users were comfortable with, they knew that the resolution we passed was fall of 2018, the hockey players, the skaters, the curlers, so I'm not in support of the accelerated date, and I won't be supporting recommendation number 1, but I do support the strategy. And as Councillor Hodge alluded to, I wish we had started all this arena stuff years ago, but here we are, and I'm comfortable with 2018. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you very much. I think going back and trying to blame things on prior history, when we made the decision, I was there to replace the arena. We had no real choice because the arena itself was going to be shut down. And that was because of probably, you could go back and say, decisions made by previous councils not to invest or put money aside for the replacement of these things. That was a $55 million project, still the largest capital project in the city of Coquitlam, that new arenas up there. I'm supportive of the 2017 time frame. Port Moody Council and their staff have gone before them and have said, yes, we can be ready for 2017. We believe the Port Moody Club and ourselves can be ready for this date. And I have to take them on their word of that. The original report that came to us in September originally recommended 2017. It was at that time that made the change that our staff in the next report that came that said that Port Moody staff said they didn't think they could be ready. And that's where the date of 2018 came from. Discussions at that time, our staff went back and had discussions with Port Moody, said, is that correct? Can you make 2017 work? Port Moody, through their staff, through the Port Moody Curling Club, and to their council, came and said, in February 14th, I think was the date, they said that they could accommodate 2017. The move for the club is not going to be any greater or more difficult in 2017 or 2018. It's going to be a difficult transition. It's going to be a difficult move. Delaying it a year is only postponing that reality because it will happen. When you take about allocations, Metro Ford Soccer has 3,800 kids, and they put together a schedule for allocations in 3 weeks. Curling's not that same size. And even in 2018, there's going to be changes in people's curling schedules. That's just the reality. Whether it happens in 2017, 2018, with merging the two clubs, there's going to be allocations, there's going to be time changes, and that's a reality. By waiting for 2018, you're just delaying that next reality. So I think our staff has done a very good job. They've done the best they can. They've worked with Port Moody staff, and Port Moody staff has been up front with them and have given them the best information. And I don't think anything we hear, I heard the word a guarantee, there's nothing that we hear that we do at this council that is 100% guaranteed. Everything you have to take on a bit of faith that it's going to be done, it's going to happen properly. So I hear that I need a guarantee. We would have to go back to ask all these development applications. We should have asked for the arts and cultural strategies or the aquatic strategy. Is this a guarantee? It doesn't happen. So we've done a good job. I think our staff has done a good job. And I will support the 2017 move. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cirillo.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I wish there was this many people in the crowd every Monday night. That's for sure. Starting with Ms. Graham, I just want to say thank you so much. You have been an amazing champion over this time. I know there's been a lot of unrest, and it has fallen on your shoulders. And in my opinion, it was entirely unnecessary, and I really, really appreciate all the juggling that you've done and all the time that you've put into it. Second of all, I wanted to say about Mr. Aliueva that you are absolutely a competent and trusted manager, and I think it's very unfortunate that you've been dealt this very, very difficult position, and I know you've done your best to juggle as well, and I just want to thank you for that. So I have two things. The first thing is process questions. So I am still really trying to understand why we are sitting here tonight with a decision that has already been made. So I guess my first question is, why is our vote, the one that we took on November 21st, being revisited at this time? Through the chair, if I could get an answer to that.
Mr. Aliueva.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so currently the resolution in front of that staff have is that this will be a 2018 transition. That is correct. And coming out of that council meeting, that was the resolution of council. As has been already explained, the staff review and the report and all the analysis done to that date was for 2017. Just before going to print on that report, we met with Port Moody for the last time, and they cautioned that they felt, the 2017 might be challenging for them, and that they felt that it could be difficult, and as a result, that they felt 2018 should be the date. So we explained to them, well, that to this point it's been 2017, but we will respect that. You're a vital partner to us. Obviously, they're the ones that are going to be helping us manage the amalgamation. So we put in the 2018. So we went to council. Council gave us the resolution. So then we met with Port Moody with the week following. So that was about 3 or 4 weeks after that meeting where they said 2018. At that subsequent meeting, they said, you know what, we think we can make 2017. We think it's possible. We've kind of over the last month, we've been looking at the situation. We think it's a real possibility. And we feel that we should explore it. Based on that, we staff to staff, we indicated, well, our marching orders is 2018. However, if you can get your council, if you feel that is what's going to be your council's wish, you can get your council's resolution. And if you do that, it will be subject to Coquitlam Council coming back and revisiting that resolution. So that was the process that was followed. We haven't implemented any action related to specific implementation of a 2017 date. We've done some early exploration and planning with Port Moody, but we've had no decisions and discussions around ordering any facility upgrades, any monies going across to them on any equipment. Nothing has been implemented. We've done planning in advance of a possible discussion around this issue. And that's how this has happened. It's been transpired with the proviso, and I think some of that, the letter that I wrote to Port Moody was read. But what wasn't read is the following line in that letter that said, this is all subject to getting concurrence from the Coquitlam Council on a revised date. And that's the open and transparent process we've had with Port Moody. We knew it's one of those challenging issues. These areas of intermunicipal cooperation don't happen very often. Having two councils resolve issues of service delivery is very unusual. It's very rewarding because we should do more of this, and we hope to do more. But because you have two councils dealing with something, one has to go first, one has to go second, and that's how it worked in this case. There was no intent to mislead. We certainly were very open with Port Moody that our council would still have to approve it. So that's how it happened.
Thank you for that. I've heard that explanation a few times, and I have to say I'm still entirely uncomfortable with it. What I'm hearing, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm saying what I'm hearing as a city councillor is that the Port Moody staff, the wants of the Port Moody staff overrode a council decision that was taken in an open council. And I really firmly believe that this decision was brought in an open council, and it could have been brought to Port Moody, their council, without the need for buy-in on our side. We already knew what our position was. So I just want to share that I really am entirely uncomfortable with the whole idea that a decision was made here and that there was a discussion outside of that happened at a different date. So I do have something prepared that I'm going to take the opportunity to read because this doesn't have to do with process. This has to do with the fact that I'm just deeply saddened that we've ended up here. It's unfortunate that, in my opinion, we have steered so far off course from the fundamental issue of insufficient ice resources to support our growing population. And as I said, Mr. Alawave, I'm sorry that you've had to deal with that. Essentially, the desire to have a quick fix has, in my opinion, ultimately resulted in pitting facility user against facility user in our community. And I also think it's ended up with some misalignment between council and city staff. Again, this is my personal opinion, but it's the way I've been feeling about this, the dealings that we've had with Port Moody. And it's also exasperated by the fact that in the report that comes to council today, it does not include the minutes or the vote from what our council said on November 21st. So over the weekend and over the last few weeks when I've been reaching out to folks, I've spent time going over just how did this happen and try to understand what processes are broken so that we can fix them and avoid such a situation ever occurring again. I don't think anybody thinks this is fun. And I think that's why process is so important. But when I looked at it, it always leads back to the bottom line that we need more ice, that we have people knocking at the door. We need more ice, we need more ice, and this is not new. At this point in time, we only need half a sheet of ice. All of this unrest for half a sheet of ice. I think in a haste to solve a well-vocalized community problem, the lack of the primetime ice, this council perhaps got some tunnel vision and saw only one path forward, and that was to sacrifice our curling ice from Poirier because it was perhaps the easiest and maybe the most economical way out of the current problem. And looking at the current numbers in this report, I'm not even sure that it is the most economical way going forward. These hasty choices have forced our curlers to either find a new location to get together and play or to stop participating in the sport of curling. And none of these outcomes are really acceptable to me. I know that our city has a goal of inclusion and to offer recreational opportunities for all ages and capabilities. And the new location that is being offered has not been proven to provide the minimums of the same level or the same level of service that our Coquitlam curlers are getting. This is why I voted to not support the strategy, that was put forward on November 21st, and to not evict our curlers from their home rink. I stated at that time that this quick fix to gain ice was not a change, which was expressed that night, but instead a loss.
Councillor Zarrillo, I hate to do this. The motion right now before us is the date only. Nobody else has debated the motion from November 21st.
It was opened again. The whole thing was opened again.
No, the motion before us is the date.
Yeah.
We're on recommendation number 1, whether to go 2018 or 2017.
That's fine. Then I will close with a motion that I'd like to make tonight. But I will say that this was opened again for absolutely no reason as far as I'm concerned. I've already voted on it.
That's why it's not open for debate right now. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult.
I know you're not.
Good.
I know you're trying to stay within process as well. So I would like to make a motion tonight that we ask staff to reprioritize some of their resources to allow for the addition of a new sheet of skating ice to be built immediately in the city of Coquitlam. Because the reason that we're here tonight is not because we want to get rid of the curlers, but because we don't have enough ice.
Okay. So it's not a motion, actually. We're in the middle of there's a motion on the floor right now. I'll go to Councillor O'Neill, who's next on the speakers list.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad point was made by the Mayor about what this motion today is about, because there has been, I guess, some inclination among some people to think that this motion today could be a proxy for the whole issue. It's not. The issue on November 21st was settled, I think, once and for all, that the amalgamation is taking place. And I note that the people opposed to the amalgamation call it an eviction. People in favor of the amalgamation call it an amalgamation. Maybe we can call it an amalgam-viction, and we'll meet halfway. But anyway, I'm going to continue with amalgamation. So today, if this motion in front of us today fails, the default position is the one that was passed a few months ago, 2018, and nobody, perhaps except Councillor Zarrillo, we weren't able to argue against that. But there's no move afoot, I think, on council, and no appetite to reopen that bigger decision. That decision has been made, and I was a supporter of that decision on the majority vote. That being said, the issue today is a very interesting one about whether the 2017 should go ahead instead of 2018. And I remember in the mid-1960s, as a young guy trying to make some extra money, I was attempting to sell subscriptions to a new Vancouver newspaper. I think it would be about 1963. The paper had not been published yet, but I was going door to door as one of their young dealers. I wasn't supposed to call myself a paper boy, attempting to sell subscriptions to a newspaper that hadn't been published yet, and actually was able to sell a few. But I remember being stopped at the door by one, to me, very elderly gentleman. He was probably younger than me, than I am now. And the gentleman said, well, you know what, I like to hear what you say, but, you know, I don't like buying a pig in a poke. And I went, oh, okay, sir. I had no idea what the expression meant. Went home and asked my mom, and she told me you don't like buying something that you don't really know what you're getting. You don't like buying it blind. And, well, and why am I telling this story today? Because I got a feeling that that's sort of where we're at right now, that there are too many unknowns about what we're going into in 2017. It's too close, too many things up in the air. We're hearing that every effort is going to be made and staff are working hard and everything like that, but there's just too much that's unknown about 2017 going ahead that quickly. I understand that that's where we originally were at last September, and last September I would have supported that. But, of course, we also, last September, wanted to hear more about from the curlers themselves about their feelings, and I'm glad we did, because boy, oh boy, it opened my eyes about how passionate they are about the sport, and it underlined how important it was that we get this right, that this merger of the two, to really make sure that curling thrives and prospers. So on the matter of the principle of the amalgamation, the amalgaviction, I'm steadfast in favor. The matter of the timing, I can really see how the 2017 at this late date doesn't work. I'm really glad that I got to speak last on this, because I've been back and forth on this all weekend. Oh, well, Richard, sorry, yes, the mayor. Well, of the councillors, of this tier of council members. The upper tier will speak last, is his right. I got to listen to all the discussion on council, and I've and also listened at committee today, read emails that have come as well to us, and so I am not going to support moving this to 2017. I'm going to stick with the decision, the difficult decision that we made on the 21st. I think is the right decision, and now more than ever, the timing is right. Thank you.
Thank you. There's someone in this room, and he knows who he is, that once suggested to me that we amalgamate fire departments with the Tri-Cities, that we shouldn't have 3 fire chiefs and 3 fire departments. We should only have the one, because it doesn't make any sense. We could be more efficient. We could protect our community as well. That person and I have since had a discussion, because he's on the other side of the issue of amalgamation now. I get that. And as Councillor O'Neill said, and as so many councillors said, there are some really passionate people in this room about curling, and I'm one of them. I have steadfastly taken the position that curling is a valuable sport, and I do believe, as others at this table believe, that one strong amalgamated Tri-Cities club is better, both for the residents of Coquitlam, but also for curling. I won't ask for any agreement on that subject. But today is about the issue of 2017 versus 2018. This afternoon we had some representations in that regard. We've since received some correspondence that suggests that council might be retaliatory. I don't know any member of council that has ever voted in retaliation, and I think the suggestion is offensive in the extreme, but it's not going to affect the way I vote. I have heard from people in this room. I've heard from people about their misgivings about moving it. I recognize that not everyone is happy about the move in the spatial move, but we know that a greater number of people are concerned not for the move, but for the move-in date. And I will also oppose the idea that we move to 2018, or sorry, that we move to 2017. I will vote against the proposed change of date. I will also make it clear, though, that I appreciate staff. I will not suggest that staff had tunnel vision or that they lost their way or something in recommending the amalgamation of the clubs. That would be offensive. I think staff made recommendations that they felt were in the best interest of the community, and I appreciate those recommendations very much. I won't be in favor, I won't be able to support the move to 2017. by default am the last speaker, and I will call the vote on 1, which is to effectively move the date to 2017. All in favor? All opposed? Sorry, there's some confusion. The staff recommendation is to move the date from 2018 to 2017. September. That's what it said. Okay. Mr. Clerk.
The recommended staff motion before you is to change the decision that was made by Council in November and switch it from 2018 to 2017.
Excuse me, I didn't hear that. Can you turn your microphone on? There we go. Okay. So the staff recommendation is to change to 2017. All in favor. Councillor Asmundson has spoken in favor. All opposed, and that's Councillors Hodge, O'Neill, Zarillo, Reid, Towner, Wilson, and myself are opposed. The motion fails. In the case of a motion failing, that's it. Nothing has changed from the previous motion, which was passed on November 21st at the council meeting. The transition will take place in 2018. Okay? I know you want to. Go ahead. Okay? Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship.
It would probably require some rewording of the next motion.
It does, and what I would like to propose in reflection of the first part of the motion and acknowledging the observation that yourself, Mr. Aliueva, have made. Part 2, I'd like to remove the word updated, which is on line 2 of the slide before you, just before arena services, and change add a prefix, which is revise the immediate to short-term action section of page 12 of attachment 1 to this report to reflect confirmation of the 2018 date and direct staff to incorporate the goals and action items identified in the arena services and facilities strategy into the final Parks, Recreation, Culture Master Plan. Just want to draw the direct link between the decision that was just made and the document that forms attachment 1 to this report, so we know how that would be modified. That's my suggestion.
Okay, there is already one on the floor. This is proposed technical wording revision, and if there's no opposition from council, or is there anyone opposed to the new wording of recommendation number 2? That's on the floor. Any discussion on this? Councillor Zarillo.
So how would I vote on this if I'm not in favor of the strategy against altogether? Is this just wording? I guess I want to understand because I'm basically voting again like I did on November 21st, correct?
Yeah, well, this isn't adopting the decision that we took in November 21st. This is simply incorporating all of the action items in a move forward. So you could vote either way.
Which I opposed last time.
Yeah, many people having voted one way on the original decision recognize that this council has made the decision, and now the steps necessary to implement council's decision aren't something we vote against, but it's certainly something you can if you want to.
Yes.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Zarillo is opposed. Motion carries.
Your Worship, that's the final formal item on this agenda.
Councillor O'Neill moves adjournment. Second. I know. Councillor Zarillo, is your...
Yeah, it is, because I had a comment.
Comment on what?
Comment on, you said that I had said that staff had tunnel vision. I wanted to correct it, because it's not what I said.
Okay, well, I'm not going to accept the motion to adjourn then. Councillor Zarillo.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I said that council got tunnel vision. I did not say staff got tunnel vision. Thank you.
Okay, it was staff's recommendation. That was the only thing. Okay, so the motion is to adjourn from Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Towner. All in favor, opposed, carried unanimously. We'll now move into question period. Question period on items on tonight's agenda. This isn't revisiting items on tonight's agenda. It's if anyone has any questions related to any of the items on tonight's agenda. Any questions at all? Any questions? Thank you all for coming.
Get up there.